We are going to start off with the March Madness tournament. Fellas, what have y'all thought of the tournament thus far?
From my perspective, man, what's surprising is you haven't had a lot of the Cinderella stories as you had before. I know people are talking about that right now, but I think in part that's because those Cinderella schools, their best players were staying at that school, and now those best players are going elsewhere, which is strengthening those blue bloods. And I think that's kind of what we're looking at right now, from my perspective. I think it's a changing of the guard, and I think the early on, Cinderella story may be a lost cause after a few years.
Ramon, what you think?
Same thing. I'm riding on. I'm piggybacking what Kai said. We're not going to see too many more Cinderella stories in basketball, college basketball. You got the best player from the teams that are not the power conferences. You know, ponying up the money and getting up out of here, going to get that money from the big boy for the blue bloods. All right. Along with that, now you got guys who are extremely great role players playing out a role now because that one guy who could carry that team to a Sweet 16 or Elite Eight is now playing for one of the big boys. So everything's going to be out of whack. And like you said, those best players at those smaller schools stayed there for 3 to 4 years. And everyone in that 3 to 4 year time span found out what their role was and they played it well. Now
Yeah.
I'm only staying here 1 year. The roles are going to change. Or if we get another superstar, budding superstar in, he may do something a little bit different than the last one. So now our roles change again. We're done seeing those fairy tales, Cinderella, once in a lifetime, one shining moment by the underdog moments. It's done.
I don't know if I it may be done, but I think we'll have them here and there. I just don't think they will be as frequent. And for me personally, I've already said I like that the top teams are still in the tournament, whether it's because of NIL or whatnot. But I think I like seeing the top teams still in the tournament. If anything, when the top teams aren't in the tournament, it kind of drives me away from even wanting to watch the tournament anymore. But that's just how I've always been. So, I think 2022 we had like a whole it was blue bloods in the final four. Like last year's final four, I wasn't too into that final four, that group, or in just who was left remaining. This year, I'm very interested in who's left in the tournament because you have those top teams. Now I know that's different for a lot of people. A lot of people watch it for the upsets. I think for me, I'm fine with upsets, but when it becomes so many, it almost feels like, okay, we kind of know what's going to happen down the stretch now, at least for me.
Yeah, I think going into that first weekend, you want those upsets. You want my bracket is burst, right? And then you want to settle in into that second day of week six of the Sweet 16, right? Teams kind of settle in, and the cream rises to the top. And it's very similar to what was happened this season. So you're looking at Florida has punched their ticket, Duke has punched their ticket. You've got Tennessee, Michigan State.
Houston.
In Houston, along with Auburn, ready to roll, right? So no matter what happens, if you just take out Auburn out of this next four, and a little bit of Tennessee, you've got blue bloods, right?
Yeah.
Auburn's not a blue blood basketball program just yet. They've gotten a lot better over the last few years, but they're not quite there yet. Tennessee has a little longer history from a college basketball tournament perspective. But I tell you, it's gonna be a wild day because I tell you, I got a feeling as I looked at Michigan State over the weekend, it wouldn't surprise me if they took down Auburn, and I'm gonna tell you why. I believe that Bruce Pearl coaches uh, hectic and frantic. And I think when things happen to their players, they get frantic, right? And I just got a feeling if there's a tight game into that second 10-minute mark of the second half, there's going to be a lot of crying, a lot of begging for calls, and it wouldn't surprise me down the stretch if Michigan State pulls away and wins that game maybe by 6 or 8 points at the end. Just in my opinion, because I just believe that you play as your coach says, right? And if you see him on the sidelines, he loses a lot, right? And I saw the players lose it in that SEC tournament against Florida. If you saw that game, they lost it a little bit too. So it'd be interesting to see what happens there.
That's a good point. I'm a big Auburn supporter. I've been watching. I always keep up with the recruiting class. I don't watch college basketball as much, but I still keep up with the recruiting. And you see, since my sophomore year of high school, you've seen Auburn slowly climb up and get these recruits and continue to build every single
Yeah,
year. I feel like, and even in my bracket, I have them getting to the national championship. I don't have them winning. I have Duke winning, but I do. I feel like there's a point where you can't be denied any longer. And Auburn has gotten denied a lot these last couple of years. But that's a good point. Tom Izzo is one of the best coaches in college basketball. So I think coaching is definitely going to play a good part in it. And I watched the Alabama and Duke game. And the other thing I got to mention is, rebounds. I think rebounding has been very integral for a lot of the games we've seen. And not only that, just being efficient.
yeah,
Alabama could not shoot threes last night in that game against Duke. And that's ultimately why they never got back into the game. Duke was either hitting their threes or they were getting good looks inside the paint. So I think it's a lot of factors. It's just going to be which one's going to be the biggest for those type of games. Um, I was really set on Auburn winning today, but maybe Michigan State does win due to the coaching aspect of it because you can't count out Tom Izzo, and I do have a little love for Michigan State because Xavier Booker, he used to play at Cathedral. I met
yeah.
Xavier Booker when I did broadcasting at Warren, so I wouldn't be mad at Michigan State winning either.
Here's my take, and I'm gonna be a little bit different than both of you guys. I want to see the Cinderella story. I want to see the upsets. We hear not just in our podcast, but I've heard many people talk about we love to see the top teams, the normal powers, the blue bloods in the final eight, in the final four, blah blah blah. Well, you know what? Prior to today, back in the day, some of those teams were just living off nostalgia, living off history, living off name. And that's why they kept getting upset. They wasn't the best team. The
Yeah,
best team don't lose and don't lose that early, So now they can win all the time because they can say, hey, maybe we're not as well coached as we thought. Maybe we're not as good as we are, but we sure enough got enough money to buy your good team. We got enough money to buy the player that you developed, so we're going to always be good. It's going to do a couple different things. Being a coach, some of those Cinderella coaches aren't going to get as many chances to run big programs because they're not going to have to upset because instead of me letting you upset me and take my job, I'm going to buy your player.
yeah.
And so now you're not going to get those upsets and you may not get as much movement. Now that could be good or bad. I'm not sure yet.
I don't
But
think I don't. Oh, go ahead.
no, that's just the reason I don't really care much for, or I do like the fact that the Cinderella story used to happen versus now I don't see it happening much.
Yeah, I don't know how to feel about it. I think for me, I enjoy watching the top teams play basketball. I like the upsets, but like I said, I think too many of them kind of waters down the tournament for me. I don't know if that's the same case for y'all, but I think like in 2018 when Loyal Chicago got to the Final Four, that was a great story because that team was like the one Cinderella team and they continued to run. But I think the last couple of years, I think other than 2022, there's been a lot of upsets. And when you get to the Sweet 16 and then the Elite Eight, you got these teams hanging in there that you just kind of know, okay, they're about to go up against teams that we know are legit and have the coaching to win this title and it kind of feels like okay, that's kind of an easy game. But that's what March Madness is about. So I'm not.
And the teams they beat, were they legit? Because if they were legit, they wouldn't have lost.
It's a good point.
Right. And I think that, every dog can have his day, right? The thing about the tournament in basketball
One game.
versus, it's a one shining moment, right? And,
Mhm.
you think about the Wichita State team from, I think about 5 years ago, their starting five are all seniors. They were in the Final Four. And the challenge was they had grown men playing against 18 and 19-year-olds, right? And when we talk about this, I just think that type of dynamic is long gone. And that's why I
Yeah.
say the Cinderella piece, the one shining moment, I just don't see that, coming back because of just that. Think about this. If you're a guy that stays in college for 3 years or more, the NBA is saying you probably can't play. That's why you're staying.
Yeah.
Guys are leaving, right after their freshman year. Maybe sophomores, but for the most part, their freshman year, and they're going to the league, right? Good, bad, or indifferent. They're saying I can, instead of limiting my practice time to 8 hours a week, I've got unlimited practice time in the G League, and I can get better. And I think that's a part of this piece as well. So when you talk about Cinderella and the tournament, I think that's that breaking point, because guys realize that they're not drafting 22-year-old players anymore and thinking they're the cornerstone of your franchise. They're grabbing guys that are 19, 20 years old and saying, this is our guy. I think that's going to be something to see probably over the next 4 years, especially if they do something with the NIL. There's definitely talk about legislating some things and maybe having a cap for schools, et cetera, et cetera. We'll see how that shakes out. But I think down the road we'll have a better view of what it is and what it isn't going to be, for sure.
Where would oh, go ahead.
Real quick. We talked about the one signing moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
When Cinderella's win and get to the Final Four, the Final 8, they got more than one signing moment.
Yeah.
They got several to get there because they're a Cinderella team. Example, my Butler Bulldogs.
I love Butler. Love Butler.
How did I know Butler was about to come up somehow, some way?
We got a good recruiting class coming up. We're going to be good.
Because they signed my degree, man. So that's why they coming up. I played football there.
We got a good recruiting class.
Let's talk about when they went to the national championship game. They didn't have one signing moment because they signed the first time against Syracuse, Kansas State, and Michigan State. And
then they went back. They went back the next year.
They went back and beat Wisconsin and Florida. So
yeah. Hey, you got to give them their credit. And I didn't look at Butler while they were playing as a crazy top underdog. If you looked at Butler, both of those years, they had pros playing for them. It wasn't like they had a bunch of JUCO guys and a bunch of McTryhards. But
let's be real though. They had one real pro.
Matt was right there on the verge of being a pro as well.
They were Michael Jackson and a Jackson 5.
I get you, but listen, look at the teams now. You don't believe now. Back then, teams didn't have 4 or 5 pros on their team as well. But you also had a coach.
They may have had 2 or 3 layered in years though.
Right.
A sophomore, junior, senior. They had one guy who was going to really be a pro, and everybody else.
But that's what you got when you get hot, though, right? You get hot. And that pro got hot along with probably the best coach in college basketball during that time. Yeah. So coaching does matter. I know people talk they underrate coaching and all that. Coaching does matter.
I think coaching means more in college than it does the NBA.
Yeah. But let me give you the example about coaching matters, right?
Before you go there, you guys just proved my point. Butler has one person, a great coach. If this isn't today's, they buy that one person. He gone. He not on Butler's team.
Right. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Those days are over, right? But to that point, when I say coaching matters, if you watch the Purdue Houston game, coaching matters. We can knock Kelvin Sampson all we want. When they went into the timeout, I told my boy, I said, they're going to draw up something good. That play was a play for the ages, and that's coaching. The talent skill set wise on that team on that game was very even. But that play, did you see the and I love the fact that it happened to a Westfield kid, how he was so out of position. The guard for Purdue, I forget his name right now, but went to Westfield. He went way out of the picture and chased a guy who was being screened on the backside and left that lane wide open. That's coaching and that's scouting. You can't replace that, right? So with that said, you got to have the players too. But that coaching is when the even teams, that coaching is going to put over the top. You look at Duke and Bama last night. That was coaching.
And I'm gonna argue about that out of bounds play.
Okay.
I think my man from Westfield made that a great play, getting out of position and not going by his fundamentals. He shouldn't have chased that. That guy should have chased through that screen. They screened the screener, and that's how he got open. That play ain't a play for the ages because Scott Hetty ran that play in 2007.
You know I'm a fan of Hetty, right?
I ran that play in AAU for 4 years. with Ray
Yeah.
McCallum's nephew on the team. That ain't a play for the ages. That's been out there.
No, I didn't say it's a play for the
had
ages.
we had an overzealous All-American
Scouting. You scout him.
jump.
But you scout.
He just jumped. He
Right,
made a
but
dumb
why?
defensive play.
Why did you make that? Why did you call that play though? Because you scouted this team and you saw an opportunity to take advantage of it.
You call
I
that
believe
play
that 100%.
You call that play because it's got 3 options to it.
Yeah.
That guy in the corner, that corner guy was going to be wide open.
But listen, what I'm saying is,
that
you don't run plays.
That dive play was going to be wide open. I mean, it's a phenomenal play because it's hard to guard. It's because all the screens come from the backside.
Right.
So if you use your normal person, you use your normal thought process, you're going to get beat. All right, just going to get beat a different way. The play is a great play, but old boy from Westfield made a bonehead decision.
Well, no, I'm with you, but see what happened when you scout and you've seen the opportunities, and then think about this: you got 39 minutes into this game. You're tired, you're worn down, you're mentally tired. So that's why that play was so effective in that moment. Now that play with 6 minutes to go in the first half may not work, but that play with 39 minutes gone in the second half of a tightly contested game, that's what I'm saying. It's about time and circumstance. I mean, you can call some great plays, right? But the timeliness is the key for me.
That is great. The timing is impeccable.
Yeah,
he called that play, but I think we overthinking the scouting part of it. We can't scout that this dude gonna make a dumbass decision. Excuse my French, world. He just made a dumb decision.
I don't know. I don't know, man. I somewhat disagree because that's what part of scouting is. How does he respond when he's tired? How does he respond when he's pressured?
You can't tell me.
Type of things.
You can't tell me that they have film breakdown of him doing some dumb shit like that over.
Not just him. I'm talking about the team itself, right? And you following these guys. And listen, if you're a coach worth your weight in salt, and you know this, you're looking for every advantage you can get, right? At every moment. So when they do that, when they talked about it after the game, says, we ran that heavily this morning, right?
Yeah.
In preparation, right? And I'm not saying Kelvin Sampson to, Mike, Coach K, no. But I'm just saying in that moment, that was a great call, and you had a guy that put himself in opposition. That's all I'm saying.
It was a great call, and he should have ran it. But I don't think that at no point in his life, I've ran Kelvin's camp when he was at IU. If he says that I knew that dude was going to leave underneath the basket and chase the corner, I'm like, man, you a damn lie.
But no, listen, I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying that. But you look at opportunities, right?
You thought the option was going to come from somewhere else. He ran out of place, and them two guys, more credit should go to them two basketball players.
Eyeballs, right? Eyeball. The eyeballs. I'm with. I think we're saying similar things. Again, I just think though that some coaches wouldn't have that play in their bag.
Yeah.
Some coaches wouldn't have that in their bag, and that's all I'm saying, right? And I like that.
Let's go ahead and wrap up this segment. I've got one more question. Where would Cooper Flagg rank out of Duke players if he wins a national title for Duke? Obviously in the modern era, it's going to be different. But I saw Colin Cowherd say he'd be up there. I also want to give a heads up. The meeting's going to end. I had it set for 40 minutes, so we'll just have to make a new one.
Okay.
I didn't realize that since we're still testing it out. So
that's good.
So we got about 7 minutes.
Here's what I would say about the Cooper Flagg real quick, right? I don't want to be a prisoner a moment. The guy's a hell of a player, but eras are different, right? Yep. I would definitely, from a Duke perspective, and I'm not a Duke fan, I wouldn't put him before Grant Hill or Christian Lake.
Yep, I agree.
Or Bobby Hurley from a Duke perspective. But again, tomato, right? From my perspective,
I wouldn't put him in front of Christian Laettner, Shane Battier, Carlos Boozer, Hurley, Elton Brand, Jay Williams. Should I keep going?
So you're saying the same thing because we're not going to be prisoners of the moment with this. He's a hell of a player today. Give him that, right? But let's let the dust settle before we crown him as the next guy.
Does he enter the draft if Washington gets the first pick?
I think no matter what. I think he wins the draft no matter what. Yeah.
But let's say he don't enter the draft because Washington gets the pick. Washington get the pick next year too. And a year after that.
Right. Yeah,
I did see
he's
someone on
going.
Twitter. I
He's
saw
going to
somebody.
the draft.
I saw somebody on Twitter, and they're a Wizards fan. They were like, "Cooper cannot enter. We got the next 5 years." Like
Why?
if
Yeah,
Unless Cooper decides to tank his season, start
yeah.
shooting bricks and missing shots and turn the
It
ball
doesn't
over.
matter.
it
Hey,
doesn't
hey,
matter.
hey! That dude's got the bloodline, man, and he reclassified. He should be a senior in high school this year. And I'm gonna tell you, he can play. He can
Yeah,
play, and
yeah.
and, and I think he needs to go on to the NBA. He is an exceptional talent that needs to go on to the
I
NBA. In
just
my
hope he
opinion.
doesn't. I just hope he doesn't. Worst case scenario, he goes to Brooklyn. I think that's his worst case scenario. Out of all the teams I'm looking at, I think Brooklyn's his worst case scenario. His best case scenario is probably the Heat. Miami would be a great with the culture they have and everything else. I think Miami wouldn't be bad. I don't
Hey,
think.
listen. I want to pick up on that because I don't want to get
Okay,
down to the
okay,
fact of
we'll
what
do
to
that.
call it
We'll
when
we'll, we'll
you just hit the when you just hit the maybe the heat and the culture. I want to pick up there because Ramon
okay.
knows where I'm going on that, so it's like take it.
Hey,
So
Jimmy
let's hit
Butler
on
hit
that.
it. Jimmy Butler hit it on the head, man.
Let's stop here, and then we'll go to the next segment, which will be
Okay,
NBA.
All right, bet.
okay.